everyone, and welcome back to our show. This show is all about sharing stories of ordinary people who have done and continue to do extraordinary things despite their fear. Our mission of this show is to share stories of others who have pushed past their fear and have done some amazing things. And today, I have Elizabeth, Mary Elizabeth Jackson here with me. So, welcome, Mary. I think I can't hear you yet for some
On.
reason.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, in your introduction, I just always like to, share the introduction with my guests that you wrote about yourself. You say that you are passionate about education, creativity, and advocacy, an award winning author and specialized special needs and disability advocate. Mary leverages her personal experience as a mother of three, including two children on the spectrum. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And a friend of mine wrote that bio for me. But yeah, so I have three children, and two are on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, with my son more so than my daughter. Both of them were born, though, nonverbal or very, very limited verbal awareness, and they both have gone through early intervention very young. My youngest, who came very late in my life, but when I was 44, he couldn't swallow when he was born, and that was a whole series of things that we went through for years trying to get that challenge overcome with him. But he also has sensory processing, language processing. My middle daughter, when she was 2.5, was diagnosed at like an 18-month-old level with her intelligence. She was developmentally delayed and nonverbal, and then language and sensory processing, all those things as well. And I didn't really get to hear "I love you, Mom" until she was about 4. She was probably 5 or older before she could really answer questions, the who, what, why, where, and when, and how questions.
Mhm.
She always had issues with, and this is kind of funny though, but reading comprehension was really, really a challenge for her with that language delay, because usually children who have language delay early on have a lot of issues with reading comprehension, but it can be overcome. I have two children who are I can witness to that. But it's so funny because reading was never a strong point for her. And you can imagine being 11, 12, 13, 14, it doesn't matter what your age is, but you can imagine you're told you have to read a paragraph in class, right? Because then you go and you answer questions. Well, how can you answer questions to a paragraph that, yes, how can you answer questions to a paragraph that you can't even comprehend some of the words that are in that paragraph? So if a child can't, then they can't answer questions correctly to get the paper right? Or the test or whatever it is. But now my daughter is in college, and she's written oh my gosh, it's over 300,000 word novel that we're trying to get published. So when I say children are incredible in what they can overcome, it is an understatement of what I've witnessed in my own life.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Congratulations for
Thank you
you
so
as a
much.
mom to, take her through that journey. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
And you like to empower and support families and individuals facing the same challenges because, you have gone through a lot.
Yes.
Yes. So, and also you have a podcast, live streaming, and a whole host of two shows, speaking and educating, and ghostwriting and songwriting. So you have lots of things you're doing. So
Yeah, it's all about, some of it's about creativity. We are beings that were intended to be creative, and we need that outlet to express. And it may not ever be anything that you do. You may not ever do anything with it. You may turn it into a profession. There's no telling. But I do believe in raising children with what I call the A triangle, and it's athletics, and then academics, of course, and the arts. And I have used those three for raising my children and have seen what it has done for my kids. You know, my oldest was never diagnosed, but has struggled with sensory stuff her whole life. And as a child, she was so painfully shy that it was almost debilitating to her. And now she can get up on a stage and sing in front of 15,000 people or act or whatever. So, you know, those kind of things I always go, okay, that doesn't make any sense, you know, but it's amazing to be able to do that, to go from where she was. So, you know, growing up when she had a hard time talking about how she felt. So I gave her those avenues of, well, write it out, sing it out, dance it out, you know, run it out, play an instrument. Those avenues for her allowed her, like, she may not be able to say what she feels, but boy, she can write a song, or she
Yeah.
can write a poem, or she can write me a letter, you know, and it just be so deeply profound. But what I love about the arts with a child is it is a window inside to a human's heart and brain, and
Yeah.
what the world is all about, because writing and art and any of those things, even music, there's no boundaries for it, and it's non-judgmental, and it's a very safe space for children or for anyone to be able to express themselves. So, you know, it's done amazing things for my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're also the owner of E&L Publishing and
Yes.
manager of Sisters J Music, and you have
Yeah.
dedicated your using your talent to promote positive change and amplify unrepresented voices.
Well, yes, that's so my bio says, yes, that's what I believe is, I think it's really important for us to empower ourselves, but also those who can't or may not know they have power, to empower themselves, you know, by teaching children tools very early on in life. Then they can take that with them through their whole life, you know, how to process emotions. If we can teach children how to take an emotion they have or learn to understand what physically is happening for them, like a upset stomach or a headache or a pain or ache somewhere, sometimes is an emotion, you know, like maybe they're nervous about going to school or nervous about a test, then their stomach hurts. Well, we can help them understand, okay, so, you know, and break it down and give them
Mhm.
that language to be able to say how they feel. They can work themselves eventually through a lot of mental, emotional challenges that everyone has, right? I mean, most of us at some point in our lives go through this emotion and mental, you know, challenges, but especially when kids are growing up, because their emotions are everywhere, aren't they? And they have to learn how to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have done lot of that with your daughter, it looks like.
Actually, all three of my kids. So my son, who's 10, is, you know, he's autistic, and his therapist, we've worked together to really help him understand what's happening for him emotionally and mentally. So when, instead of having tremendous meltdowns or, you know, having anger outbursts, and I mean, it's not perfect, but it's always a work in progress, right? But I can say to him, okay, buddy, what's happening? And he can just say to me, Mom, I'm just really excited, or I'm really
Mhm.
nervous, I'm scared. And just to name it is a way to tame whatever's happening for you. And I
Yeah.
know that if he can do it, then just about any of us can learn to do it. That's what I think, you know?
Absolutely. And then the name of the, this show today, you said that advocacy equals empowerment. And you have a
Yeah.
story that you would like to share with us today. So tell us a little bit about what kind of fear did you have?
Well, there have been lots of them on my parenting journey, and not just, and now I'm a mom or my child has needs, because our children come out having needs, period. You know, they have
Yeah.
to be fed and bathed and changed and all those things that we have to teach them. But then when you have a child who has a challenge or a disability, sometimes those are seen at birth, right? When a child is born with Down syndrome, or maybe cerebral palsy, or any of number of things, or maybe they're blind. You know, those you see right away, and you know, okay, we're going to have to help with this child. But you have children that have unseen disabilities, and maybe they don't present themselves for a while. Any of them can present fear in a parent. or caregiver, whoever is raising the child. So I was not prepared for some of the challenges my children have gone through. And um, my middle daughter, when she was 5, was in a special education classroom in public school. And this is sort of where my advocacy journey took a ginormous pivot. So I had become an advocate when her diagnosis happened and had to learn what all that meant, what her diagnosis meant, all the therapies, the special school, all the things we needed to do. It was a whole different world than what I'd ever really experienced. And so then when she was 5 and in special education classroom, she was abused for about 8 months, along with about 6 or 7 other children. And it was a very significant situation. And because of her lack of verbal skills, she was not able to fully explain what was happening to her. And then everything that I saw and I went in and confronted was met with, it's that didn't happen here. Okay. So then you're you up against the school, the teacher, and whoever else. And so we got a call from the police department letting us know about the investigation. The teacher was removed. DCS got involved. It was a really tough about 4 years in there. And for my daughter, it's been a lifetime of recovering, because obviously a child suffers PTSD as well as a lot of other things from the mental, emotional, verbal abuse. So at that point, I began, because when I got that phone call from the police department, you can imagine, like watching a movie, your entire life changes, and you're never the same after that. So and also when you're involved in a lawsuit, you really can't talk to anyone about anything, because all of that can be brought into court, and that's not fair to do to someone else. So it's a very lonely place to be. But what I did, because there was so much fear around all of that happened, and what actually happened to my child, and what are we facing, and how I'm going to use the word broken is she, right, at the hands of someone else. I started to go to Capitol Hill in Nashville and meet with senators and state reps, and it was like something inside me pulled me forward. God, whoever, whatever you believe in, a higher power said, you can't stay in this place. You have to do something about this, right? That mama bear came out. So I began seeking to change law in the state that we live in, and I'm still working on this. And all of that happened in 28, 29. And so what it helped me do was to go from a place of feeling like a victim, because you have that extension from your child. Your child has been victimized, but that extends to you as a parent as well, or caregiver. A whole family is affected by it, right? So changing law for me was a way that empowered me to do something about what happened.
Yes.
So I didn't feel so helpless, because, you can't just go and harm the person who harmed your child. You can't do that, even though you want to hurt who's ever hurt your child. Your little 5-year-old is now forever changed. You'll never know that path that child would have had in the first place, or who they would have been, how their life would have been, how your life would have been. I mean, when you break it down, that's what happens. It's never the same again. And you can't parent the same. Your life completely changes. Your relationship with the child changes. The relationship between the child and the siblings change. So we had to rework all of that, because you can't discipline a child who's been abused in the same way you would discipline maybe another child.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
you have to, it's a lonely road. Let me just say that. I've learned on the job, let's say.
Yeah, yeah, you were given the task and then you learned it as you went with your children. I mean, that's just hard to hear that your child got hurt. I'm glad you took the
Yes.
road of empowerment, you know?
Yeah, because it feels you feel like you have no power, like you've completely failed as a mother, protecting
Mhm.
your child. It's, I went through tremendous amount of guilt for many years, because I felt like I should have known. But the signs that I saw were so minute, and I addressed those. But there's none of the other parents knew either,
Mhm.
and now I know what to look for. Now I try to educate people and to come from a place of a diplomatic place about things. If you feel like something's going on, like your gut is saying, your mother's intuition, something isn't right here. I don't feel comfortable about this situation, maybe a classroom setting for your child, then you need to go in and say how you feel, but in a very diplomatic way. You can't go in, you know, yelling and screaming unless something really bad happened. But you know what I mean? In order to be effective and positively affect change, there are times that we have to go in and we have to be very calm and we have to say, okay, we're working together. Here's a team in the best interest of this child or my child. And let's talk about how we can all work together instead of blaming, if your child's not getting the services they need, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Pointing fingers, it's not going to get what you want for your child. At the end of the day, it's about the child, right? And when
Yeah,
you're not there, how they going to get treated?
right.
That also, is a big part of a parent's worry. Are they getting
Yes,
treated the same way when I leave? And are they getting the same service they're promised? Because sometimes a lot of children have a IEP, but it never get fulfilled to the extent it's written, right? Because teachers don't have time,
absolutely.
and the classroom is full of
Well,
lost behaviors. So it kind of, a lot of the time you have to ask, but in the right way, as you say. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say there's, we're dealing with understaffed, we're dealing with undertrained, we're dealing with underpaid.
Yes.
And I see it all the time. And I try to help educate families. I do go in and help in meetings in the public system. And then I've done some private as well. My kiddo was in private. And so I actually am in the middle of a situation like what you're just discussing with my son, and
Mm.
thinking that, okay, as an advocate, I've already done all that I'm supposed to do as an advocate, but the person on the other side failed to do their job. And so now, we're playing catch up this summer. And,
Mm.
we just, I have a lawyer friend who, she's one that everyone in this county goes to when they have a challenge or something, and she's just really an incredible human. And we were texting back and forth about the situation, and she said, Mary, when you're, because I told her, I said, I'm so tired of this, the battles and the challenges. Sometimes you just get you have one of those days, right? We're all human. And she said, when you have a child with challenges, you never, ever get to stop fighting. Never, ever get to stop. And I said,
Yeah.
I know. It would be nice to conquer and go, okay, everything's fixed. We patched up the wall, it's all good now.
Because it's stages, right? When you fix one, there's that next stage, and then the next stage, and there's another level to their complex. It becomes you have to solve it. It's like raising any child, right? Every stage brings you a new opportunity for us to grow as parents as well. So I
Mhm.
can
And
only
that's a good
imagine.
word. That's a good word, opportunity to grow.
Grow.
And yes, you're absolutely right, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, and especially with children on the spectrum, parents have extra opportunity to grow, right? And you just know what the system will do and not do, and where to go. You find out. It seems like you've done a lot, Mary. So.
Mm. I've tried, but it's a constant growing. Like even right now, in the present situation, I had to go down to the county office for the school system. We're in the public system here because they were providing the intervention programs for my son that I needed. So I had to go down there and get trained myself, so
Mhm.
that now I'm doing this with him, and then I can teach someone else to help do this as well with him. Um, and so there's a lot of sacrifices that come with raising children, and even more when you have a child with needs, especially if you have OT, PT, or speech therapies involved. Maybe you have an ABA or a parapro. There's a lot of extras that come with a child who has needs. And you I know that we're not ever prepared in life for the things that come in our lives. We don't get handed a book and go, okay, hey, so you just had, Jamie, and this is what Jamie's going to go through. So just get your big pants on. You're going to be dealing with this in their life. So just suck it up, Buttercup, right? um, but we don't get that. So just like you were saying, I never imagined in a million years I would have dealt with some of the things that we've dealt with in raising my children. But I'm a fighter, and oh, and there's my okay. No, 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 baby, no, no. She's protecting her home front. She's a fighter too, right? But I feel what I think is really important for parents. This is part of going from fear to empowerment is education of whatever's happening in the situation. If your child has a diagnosis, go look it up, research it, find out if there's natural solutions. No, baby, I am so sorry. Come here. She's just doing her job. Okay. All right. Mommy had to tell the baby to be quiet. Okay.
Awesome.
And she's not
Well,
listening.
she's got something to say too about
I know she does. She's
this.
14 and she's like, I've got to do my job. Come here, sweetie. And, but, educating yourself, your family, any caregivers, if you are the caregiver, it helps you to go from being in a powerless state to being empowered, because then you can you can help your child to become more empowered, because you can say, okay, sweetheart, so maybe you take this as a conversation. So you've just been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder,
Mhm.
if they're old enough to understand. What that means is that your brain works differently. You learn differently. You take in information differently. You process differently. Doesn't mean wrong or bad. It just means a different way that it happens. So we're going to learn what's the best way for you so that you can have a better experience at school, with classmates. If a child is phasing out of school, going into college or a job, how can we help that child phase out and be successful in what they're doing? So it just is such a much more empowering place to be.
Yes, absolutely. I love it how taking the time to explain. Sorry about today. Sorry about that. There's some noises on my end too.
I
So
know. I just heard that. I was like, wow, we got all kinds of stuff going on today.
yeah, it's a bad day. So
That's
I
so
was just saying how important for us to educate ourselves, and then, as you said, also educate the child and tell them that they learn differently. We are all different, right?
right. Wow, it's
Yes.
louder at your house than my house today.
Yes, Mary. So tell me, what would you tell your younger self about fear?
That's a really good question, because as an adult looking back on our lives, we can tell our little self it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to go through things that are scary, but just you know um, surrender when you need to surrender, and have faith, and just be patient. Be patient, and you're going to need strength in your life, and you're going to need um, put folks around you can rely on, and always surround yourself with support. I would tell myself that, because there's if I'm looking back on my life, I'm not sure of the things that could have been done differently. When you have a child is born how a child is born. um, unless you were out, unless you didn't do good things for your child when you were, pregnant, and that was the cause. Some of the causes of a child, what they're born with, is not anything that a mother could have done differently. And I think most of us moms go through that guilt. This is you feel guilty that your child was born with some sort of deficiency. Hey, come on now, some sort of deficiency or a challenge, if you want to call it. There's those that we feel guilty about, and so we have to give ourselves grace about those things. So I I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question. Because
No, you did. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're just having lots of disturbance today. That's all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let go of the people who need to go early. Sometimes we have viewers who likes to, go after the first 20 minutes. So Mary and I will continue our conversation into our wisdom circle. So thank you for joining into our show. I'll see you guys next time at 11 a.m. PST on Wednesday. If you are interested in making learning easy for your child, please book a call with one of our certified learning success coaches at learningsuccessacademy.com. Until next time, see what's on the other side of fear. So, Mary, I wanted to continue to ask you because you have such wealth of knowledge about caring for two beautiful children who are on the spectrum, and you were saying earlier your daughter who has gone through some traumatic events in her early childhood, but she's now singing and she's no longer shy, she's flourishing. So tell us a little bit of how was it for you to take her from that place to bring her to where she is today.
So, okay, so I have two daughters, and
Okay.
so it's okay. I'm just going to clarify that. So my oldest was the one who was terribly shy, and
Okay.
she has a lot of sensory challenges, but was never diagnosed. That was over 23 years ago. So
Okay.
there was not as much knowledge back then available to us. But my middle daughter, who went through the trauma. Um, I will tell you that being a child of divorce, I felt like geared me in life to, because when you're young and your parents divorce and other things happened at that time, I learned, I think part of survival is learning to tell yourself everything's okay, right? Because you don't feel like everything's okay on the outside of your environment. But if the inside, if I can tell myself I'm okay and then make sure things around me are like that, then we have at least control of that, because there's so many things in the world we don't have control over, right? So I think that skill really came into play for me when things happened with my daughter, because even though her world was shattered, and trying to put the pieces of her back together in over so many years, because our life for most of her elementary years was filled with therapies every week, sometimes multiple times a week, depending on if triggers had come up for her. But I was determined to keep her in school. There was a lot of debate with therapists and stuff. Should we keep her in school over the trauma? Should we just keep her at home? So in the end, it was like, no, she needs to go to school. And I kept our life as normal as I possibly could. I put her in dance, gymnastics, softball, karate. She did karate for 3 years. So she's like 6 months from a black belt, right? That's an empowering thing to teach a child when they have been, their power has been taken from them in their mind. Because when a child has trauma very young, those traumas get stuck in the brain pathways. And so some of those, unless you have the right therapy and awareness, those can stay in the person's brain forever, right? I think when she was 16, even 16, 17, maybe 15, 16, we sought some specific specialized therapy to move some of that trauma in her brain so that she could finally deal with it, to get her past some things in her life. But
Mhm.
I just think that keeping your environment as normal as you can, like Carson is 10, he just now this year is understanding that he has autism. Like, I've never made it that it's different or
Mhm.
weird or bad or anything, never. And so it's just our life, and it's part of who we are. It's like if you look at somebody's description of their life, or their bio, kind
Mhm.
of, if you want to say that. But so for me, keeping things normal that way and encouraging her, keep gently pushing, no, you go try this, it's okay, I want you to go, I'm here with you, let's try softball, let's try dance, let's find something that gives you an outlet. But if we come back to those 3 A's, the triangle, the arts played a significant role in both of my girls' lives and now in my son's life. So my Lily, my middle one with the trauma, she had started drawing I guess before she was 2, and
Mm.
would draw great details, which at the time I thought, well, that's great. She's doing something, she's busy, and she's happy, and it's healthy for her, right? And it's keeping her busy. I can go make dinner.
Mhm.
And so through the recovery of her trauma all those years, art was her channel for processing through what was happening for her. So now she's in college and she is in the animation and filmmaking department, and she will be an animator someday. But that was what her thing was. That's where she processed her trauma. And so it was a very safe place for her. And my girls have done a couple of summits this year, and their title of their talk has been what music and arts has done in their life for them.
Beautiful.
And I think it's a huge, huge, just such a powerful tool for children that um, need a voice or need a healthy way to express themselves. So if we can gear children that way, I think we can cut down on screaming, yelling, fighting, slamming doors. I hate you. Those kind of things. I think
Absolutely love it.
you can cut down on. And I think also, I'm so passionate about, I don't want a child to ever think their only option is suicide. Okay.
Yes.
So if we can help them process what they're feeling and their emotions, I mean, sometimes mental illness is in there and medication is required. And we have to be responsible as a parent to do that if it's needed. But if we can give them a healthy tool that will help them find a purpose that makes their heart sing, makes their spirit sing, you know, then you've given them more than what money is even worth in life, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said, giving those kids voice. And trauma is like, it's so it touches my heart because I'm a suicide survivor myself. So for me, when I was young, I fell in love with math. Math was my way of healing myself and getting
Mm-hmm.
back to where I'm today, helped through math. And you said your daughters went through art and music. Like
Mm-hmm.
we all find a way to kind of hold on to something to help us, right? So it's
Right.
really important to as parents to notice those things and maybe encourage them to do
Right.
more, right?
Yeah. So yours was academics. Remember, I said art, athletics, and academics. I think engaging those, it engages both the right and left side of the brain, and it engages the body. And, whether it's mathematics or it's architecture or baking or the garden, or it doesn't matter what it is. Your kid may be the most amazing Lego builder you've ever seen.
Hmm.
Encourage it, find a way for them to do that. That's a passion for them. And we were not meant in this world to shove our passions down. We were not meant to close off creative outlets. So we are meant to express. And so it doesn't matter if you ever do anything with it. If you don't have a talent for any kind of art, then like you said, maybe it's math or language or science or history, or maybe it's some sort of sport,
Or reading.
or
Some
reading.
people,
Yeah. God.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
some people are reading. They're reading maniacs. My mom is. She reads all the time, but it's a way for her to escape and works things out for herself.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go back to earlier you were saying about how a parent should approach the school system and how to become part of a team, because you help with a lot of parents with that, right? Because initially it's so hard when you hear as a parent your child is on spectrum or they have some learning disability or whatever it is. You always get like, okay, I need to get the most for my child. How am I going to get it? But then you get defeated sometimes, right? Tell us a little bit, how should they approach if a parent has a child?
Okay, so first of all, if you want to talk from the place of just being diagnosed, or a parent who already knows a child has a challenge, then sometimes, well, first of all, you need to, whether the school has approached you first, either way, you need to approach the school and say, my child has just had an outside diagnosis. or if the school even approaches you and said, we want to do some testing with your child, we need to set up a meeting. So you go in, you have that initial meeting with the school, and there should be like a principal or a vice principal present. There should be a school psychologist present. There should also be like the special needs, a special services person there, whether it's speech or OT, whoever is in the school, and then the parent. And so, there are a lot of resources online that you can just Google, how to have an effective first meeting with a school about my child. You could just Google that. And there should be a list of things there for you. You definitely, if you already have a diagnosis, research as much as you can. And also search what are your legal rights with getting services for your child with that diagnosis. So there's a website called Rights Law. It's WRIGHTS Law.
Okay.
And so on there, I think you can research and find out just about any law, and so that way, if you educate yourself on these things when you go into a meeting, and it doesn't always come up that you need to know these things. But first of all, a child there's the disability laws that are there, and IDEA and FAPE. Every child is, guaranteed a free and public education, and there are those laws in place to protect our kids and make sure they get the right education. But when you need to always try to be as calm as you can in a meeting and come in with an attitude of, I want to work with this team of people in the best interest of my child, because that is who you're there for. And so, go in with the education and knowledge if your child already has a diagnosis. Okay, so that then you can say, well, this is what I understand about what the diagnosis is of my child. And if you have had testing done outside of the school, make sure you bring all that information. And even if it's a medical diagnosis for your child, it could be ADHD, or it could be any number of, maybe they have a hearing issue or a sight issue. You need to have those in your child's file, and the school needs to be aware of those things about your child. But you would sit down and come up with, you're going to either come up with specific testing that needs to be done for the child by the school, and then you would meet again for results and come up with a plan called an IEA. An IEP, sorry, IEA is something else. Sorry, there's a lot of acronyms in the world of special education, but you would do an individualized education program for your child that it's going to consist of things like certain amount of time a week a child would be pulled out of a classroom for help, or somebody might come into a classroom to help your child, and they like to keep kids in the classroom as much as possible, so that they are seeing what their peers are doing, and they're not missing out on their education for whatever grade they're in. But if you can, come in with just calm and, I want us all to work together. It's important for me, for my child to get, any service that he needs, he or she. And then, be willing to work with the school. If you get to a point where you're not seeing progress and you're being met with aggression or, just difficultness, then you should seek out an advocate to go with you. And you could Google that for your area, wherever you live, or you can call a disability service. Look, in the big cities, all have disability service departments of all kinds, and they can lead you to somebody who could be an advocate for you if you're not getting through to whatever, all schools are not perfect, right? And like we talked about earlier, there's underpay, there's understaff, there's undertrain. So that's where we as parents have to kind of stay on top of things, and sometimes parents have to move their kids from one school to another to get the services they need for their child.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Thank you, Mary, so much for sharing all that. And I think one other thing I want to ask you is about when a parent has set up all these, education, individualized education plan. If there is a time when something is not being followed, that's when parents have such hard time, right?
yeah.
So did that ever happen to you, and how did you handle it?
Yes, it has. And I've just kind of actually gone through that, believe it or not. But Another thing that is very important is always keep a paper trail. Anything that you talk about with someone in the school, make sure it goes through an email or it's in an email. So you have a recorded track of conversations that were had. So, if you're faced with a situation where somebody says, well, you never told us this, or I never knew this, then you can go back and look at that email and say, yes, it's in this email and I sent it directly to you and so and so and so and so. So keep that paper trail. That's very, very important. And, when you're faced with a situation that your child, say it's in the program for your child, and then it's not being done or met, then you need to call a meeting, because you can call a meeting at any time for your child at the school to update things, maybe a new diagnosis, maybe some new treatment, kind of thing. You can have a meeting anytime that you need. So you need to email the psychologist or the teacher, or the principal, and say, my child is not getting the services they're supposed to. Can I come in and talk to you about this, please? So you set up the meeting and go in and discuss what's going on. And like I said, if you're not getting those needs met for your child, then you need to seek an advocate to come with you, okay? Because they will be pretty well versed in the law. And usually they can get things done. Sometimes parents can't. But that's where education comes in, so that maybe you can get through that without having to have an advocate. But so the situation like I just had, we're going through right now, there was supposed to be this program used with my son to help him get caught up, and it was not applied. And so I had to go back in and have a meeting, and I had to say, what's happening here? Why do we have this deficit happening when you were supposed to do this, this, and this? So in our case situation, the special services teacher that was working with him left. And so what I'm doing now is, like I said, I've gone into the county, and because school is out now, right? If it was during the school year, then it would have been handled differently. There would have been the training. I would have made sure that the person who was supposed to do what they were supposed to do would have gotten the training they needed to. So you have to just stay on top of those things. You have to check, and not in an obnoxious way, not in an angry way, just a very diplomatic mediator type of way. Okay, so my child isn't making progress. We need to talk about it. Why isn't he making progress? What needs to be adjusted? What needs to be fixed or tweaked, so that we can make sure that this happens like it's supposed to for him? Sometimes you just have to stay on top of things to make them fulfill what they're supposed to do. And sometimes they're overworked, like you said earlier in our conversation here. My situation is a little different because it's happening right at the end of school. So as his mother, I had to go get trained last week, and now I'm applying and working with him every day with these two programs. And then I'm going to train somebody who's going to be working with him, so she can then take it over for me for the summer, or partially help me out. But going into the next school year, I will start the school year with a meeting and, okay, what are we doing here for my son? We will start the very beginning of the year with that, maybe even before school starts, to make sure everything's in place for him.
Yeah, that's a good idea to start earlier and have
Yeah, the
things.
earlier the better. Yeah, don't wait, and please do not wait and it make it better. A lot of times we do that. People are overwhelmed in life, right? And they just hope it'll just go away or it'll just fix itself. Don't do that. If you see a problem, immediately go and address it so that it doesn't get too far behind. It's like any kid in middle or high school, right? They start to get behind, and then it's really hard to catch up. And they've got ACTs coming up, or they're getting ready to graduate high school. So you don't want to let it fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mary. I think you have provided so much advice for so many different things for parents to think about. And as you said, last thing is, be be in a place of, you know, collaborating and communicating with everyone involved, rather than, as you earlier said, blaming or finger pointing. Because at the end of the day, you want the best for your child. Doesn't matter how it comes, but we just want to set them up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. Being combative is not going to get you where you need to get for your
Yeah.
child.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add here to share with parents before we go?
I just would say, again, kind of piggybacking around to education for yourself. And if your child has therapies, maybe they have PT, physical therapy, or occupational therapy, or speech, learn what the therapist is doing with your child, and then take it home with you. Like, be reiterating it at home, because they may only see a therapist 30 minutes in a week. Well, that's not enough. You need to keep working with your child with whatever issue it is or challenge they have. And that's one thing that I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you, for staying with us and tuning in. We'll see you at 11 a.m. PST next week. If you're interested in making learning easy for your child, please book a Clarity coaching call with one of our certified learning success coaches at learningsuccessacademy.com. Until next time, see what's on the other side of fear. Let's ignite and inspire children to push past their fear and make fear not a factor for them. Thank you so much, Mary Jackson, for being here and sharing about your story and about your children and how you have, and helping your son and daughter as well. And I wish you all the best with your son next year. I think you know what you're doing now,
Mm,
right?
thank you
You're
so much.
you will get him the help he needs.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it's
absolutely.
important. You
100%.
you you have you have his back. So thank you so much for sharing everything. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you so much. Bye.